A former WWE talent reveals the secret of WWE press conferences, a return that surprised those in WWE, a potentially disastrous WWE injury, and more. I'm Luke Owen and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
But first, we must talk about Sexyy Red. No, not that guy. A hilarious meme about the Shawn Michaels era of NXT is that it is way hornier than both the previous versions of NXT and the main roster. And that's saying something. We all lived through NXT 2.0. It's also a show that is quite in touch with mainstream pop culture. For example, HBK wanted Drake and Kendrick Lamar to come onto the show to settle their beef. But while they didn't appear, rapper Sexyy Red did tweet about Meta-4 and their current feud with NXT champion Trick Williams, which has since been revealed was a planned bit of social media marketing and done in conjunction with WWE, as she will be appearing on next week's episode of NXT, leading to the hilarious headline from Cage-Side Seats: Sexyy Red is coming to WWE NXT by RKO somebody. And they're not wrong. That is what Miss Red has promised on Twitter. Perhaps she can give them some guidance on PR, as WWE have come under fire for that as of late. WWE introduced post-show press conferences as part of the Triple H era. AEW and Tony Khan have been doing them since the company's launch, and that's never brought about any headlines whatsoever. Nope, none whatsoever. No, nothing to see here. Post-show press conferences for a scripted show is, well, they're a bit weird. They have to try and skirt the lines between being in the world of kayfabe and being in the real world where real things happen. In those AEW examples, Punk brought up his real-life frustrations with the company, Chris Jericho was asked about real-life allegations brought against him, and Toni Storm made a light-hearted and good-natured joke about Cody Rhodes' win at WrestleMania, which got her real-life negative attention from online trolls. And WWE have not been free from this either. This year's Royal Rumble took place just a few days after the Janelle Grant lawsuit against Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE was filed, along with another huge Wall Street Journal expose on McMahon. And being that WWE are named in the lawsuit, one would expect that they would be asked about this at a post-show press conference by the media. But despite being a huge fan of Metallica, Triple H was clearly not one. He was not prepared for the question and embarrassingly admitted that he hadn't read the lawsuit. Other WWE wrestlers over the weekend were asked about that lawsuit and handled it so much better. The same thing happened at the most recent Backlash press conference, where Triple H was asked about the recent NXT releases, and Hunter instead used this as an opportunity to attack wrestling media outlets like Fightful and PW Insider. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful revealed that WWE and Triple H himself reached out to him to apologize, and they even sent him a basket of cheese as an apology. And now Matt Camp, the former host of WWE's The Bump, who was released a couple of months ago, has revealed on his new podcast, The Wrestling Matt Show, some of the secrets behind those post-show press conferences. He openly said that Triple H has fumbled and stumbled through the Rumble and Backlash conferences, and revealed that WWE don't really want wrestling media in there asking tough questions. He said, they want fans in there. They want people who want to be part of the show that don't want to mess with that part of the show. The press conference is part of the show. So what's the point of these press conferences then? Well, we'll have more on that in a bit, and while you ponder that question, here's a clip from our most recent 3 counts where Ollie and I had our own little jokes about Triple H's press conference fumbles.
Eats cheese trollingly in the media conference, just snacking on a big bit of camembert.
I think you're missing the big picture here. The Shawn thing was a ruse. It was actually just a testing ground. Launches WWE Cheese. It's the newest arm of TKO.
You can watch it on Twitter.
They're going to have their own cheese brand. And they'll name them after all the wrestlers, and you can order them, mail order, a subscription service, if you will.
Matt Camp reveals that the idea behind the post-show press conference is not really for wrestling media to get headlines and stories, and more for them to be just an addendum to the pay-per-view, where wrestlers can put over their storylines and character development. He added WWE wants softball questions. That's why there's been criticisms of some of these questions. Some corners of the wrestling media have even been critical of other members of that same wrestling media bubble for not asking hard-hitting enough questions to the likes of Triple H, who doesn't do a lot of media interviews, and there's even been claims that WWE vet the questions before they're asked, basically allowing and disallowing certain topics to be brought up. This has been denied by media who have attended these conferences, and Matt Camp confirms that WWE do not vet questions. However, he added, if they want softballs, they should vet the questions. For Camp, it all comes down to the fact that Triple H nor the talent are prepped ahead of time before going on stage. In other media worlds, talent are prepped by their PR teams on how to answer certain questions so as not to say anything they shouldn't. That's what prepping is. And Matt Camp says they can do a better job with prepping Triple H so he doesn't say things like, well, I haven't read the lawsuit, or this guy's not credible. You know, he rips Fightful and Mike Johnson, then everyone is getting cheese from Fairfield, Connecticut. If he's prepped better, this stuff doesn't happen. He adds that now he's on the outside looking in, he appreciates the tough questions being asked of WWE because WWE doesn't tell you anything. He added that WWE are not happy that tough questions are being asked at the press conferences, but adds, if you're gonna open the doors to the media, then everyone up there at the press conference should be prepped to answer the tough questions. What do you think of WWE's post-show press conferences? And if you were in charge of WWE's PR team, what would you do? Let me know in the comments down below. WWE are currently dealing with a bunch of injuries to their big name talent like CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Dominic Mysterio, Rhea Ripley, and others, and the big cheese Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful Select has revealed that this week's Raw also saw a couple of other busted open wrestlers. He reports that both Io Sky and Dakota Kai were busted open in their respective matches, but thankfully he adds they were fine. Someone who is not fine, however, is WWE's big free agent signing of 2024, Julia, who reportedly fractured her wrist at the inaugural Marigold Field show. The report came out that there's no time frame on her return to the ring, as she would be out indefinitely. It is a huge blow for WWE, who had big plans for her NXT debut to take place at Heatwave next month. However, it might not be as bad as originally feared. Corey Brennan of Fightful Select notes that WWE remain hopeful that Julia will be healed in time for NXT Heatwave. He does add, however, that the original plans of Julia taking on Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship on the show might now be on hold. He was told these plans are not set in stone and could change due to Julia's Marigold obligations and her current injury. And it's not just WWE, as Julia herself revealed that her scheduled match with former NXT star Sexyy will take place on July 13th, which is 1 week after NXT Heatwave. Brennan also asked about Julia's presentation in WWE and was told she is signed for who she is and that WWE will not look to fix something that isn't broken. He also adds that the language barrier that has halted the pushes of other non-American talent over the years is now not a problem in the Triple H era, as we've seen the likes of Shinsuke Nakamura, Asuka, and Io Sky cut promos in their native tongue. Lastly, on Raw news and notes, the show also saw the return of Sonya Deville, who's been out of action for almost a year. She had a backstage segment with Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, who then went on to win a #1 Contenders Fatal 4-Way to face Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. What makes this all the more wonderful is that it was a complete surprise. While she wasn't hidden backstage, Sean Ross Sapp notes on Fightful Select, there were several sources that we spoke to who didn't expect Sonya back until mid-summer and were pleasantly surprised to see her return. WWE Raw also saw a rise in its ratings, drawing 1.74 million viewers, which is the best number it's done in 5 weeks. It's no coincidence then that those 5 weeks saw WWE compete against the NBA and there were no games this week. It's been a similar story for AEW, and this past Wednesday's Dynamite suffered one of the lowest viewerships the show has ever had. But it was some good news on the ratings front for AEW for a change with this past Saturday's Collision, as the show once again drew over 500,000 viewers, up nearly 40% on the previous week to draw 523,000 100,000 eyeballs, with their second highest 18 to 49 demo of 2024. Rampage, which followed this past Saturday's Collision, also continued to see its upward trend in viewership, using Dynamite and Collision as its lead-in, drawing the second highest viewership for the show since March. It comes at a crucial time for AEW's TV rights negotiations. PW Insider have reported that the two sides have yet to reach an agreement. However, Fightful Select report that something is expected to be announced in either the summer or the fall. And finally, a big thank you to all of you Mathletes that stood up on social media, including Dorina, Demonic Cosplay Dude, Bama the Great, Blacks Harwood, and more. Thank you for all of your comments in the news, and if you're heading to Dynamite tonight, take your t-shirts and your signs. Send them to WrestleTalk_TV on Twitter and WrestleTalk.official on Instagram, and we will feature them in tomorrow's WrestleTalk news. Ollie will be doing the news tomorrow, so he'll be able to see how math is greater than pipe bomb. Now go and watch that episode of 3 Count where Ollie and I predict this year's King and Queen of the Ring in 3 words or less / fewer.